Right. Looks like we have a few more people joining us, but we will go ahead and get started. So thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have Aaron Friesick here with special guest Andy Schuster from the DataBank team to talk all about building an OnBase roadmap. So Aaron, I'm going to kick it off over to you and let's get rolling.
Very good. Thank you, Claire. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Building an OnBase Roadmap session. Quick for a brief introduction, my name is Aaron Friesick, as Claire mentioned. I've been with DataBank, or EDOC, as some of you may have come on, for a little over 11 years. However, I've really been working with the OnBase product and solutions around it for about 18. As you can see on this screen, the first versions I was working with, and I know I've talked with quite a few of you on the call today, were versions 3.5.4, and so I know a couple of you have been out there since at least that long, or right around that area. And now we're all the way up to versions 21 or soon to come up on 22. So certainly a long history in the Highland OnBase solution and working with these types of projects. Specifically in those 18 years here, 9 of them were to architecting solutions and reviewing solutions as both a solution architect and as a team and technical lead, just making sure we had the right items as part of our solutions. I currently reside in Lincoln, Nebraska. It's a balmy, I think, 18 degrees today. But I joined DataBank as they assisted in designing and rolling out OnBase at the state of Nebraska. And that was really one of my first truly enterprise opportunities. How I have had the opportunity to work with many different sized public and private sector entities on enterprise initiatives, or really even all the way down to small departmental solution implementation, and learned quite a bit over the last 18 years on how to roadmap. And now I have the opportunity to lead DataBank strategic solutions. So with that introduction, I will turn over to Andy. Andy's joining us as kind of a guest speaker on our piece today. So Andy, do you want to give a little introduction about yourself?
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. As you guys can see, my name's Andy Schuster. I'm a project manager, program manager here at DataBank. I've been working in OnBase for a little over 10 years. I started off in bank solutions with Fiserv. I have done some work with on the healthcare side with a healthcare institution here in Sioux Falls. I've been working at DataBank, or with DataBank, for 2 years. I work with a lot of our larger clients. I do some stuff with our smaller clients, some smaller projects. I will be on to talk through, some of the trends that we're seeing with enterprise licensing, enterprise projects, things that really flow from a small project and end up growing into this large solution. You can see I'm a native of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, not North Dakota here, but Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And as a kind of an icebreaker, we did get our first snow yesterday, finally, of the winter. We got 3 inches. A semi overturned on the interstate yesterday. It was full of wigs and toupees. Police are still combing the area. With that, I'll hand it back over to Aaron.
I always appreciate Andy jumping on it and sharing those good details and his jokes of the day. Before we jump in today's session, I want to remind everyone of the other sessions that will be upcoming in our Camp Explore series. So welcome you to this one, but want to encourage you, as you see here, following this session, session 2 will be planning your cloud strategy. Whether you're currently in the cloud or whether you're looking to go to the cloud, I encourage you to join that session. Certainly cloud-based items and strategies around that apply in many cases to some OnBase changes on-premise as well. So that'll take place after the holidays on January 18th. The next one in our session will really be enabling your technical teams, and that'll take place on February 15th. We'll do an automation session on the 15th of March, and then wrapping up this series will be a content intelligence series on the 12th of April. So we hope that you enjoy this session, and we hope that you join us for the rest of the sessions that we have coming up as well. So let's talk briefly about the items that we're going to look to cover today in our first OnBase Camp series on road mapping. So first, what we want to do is we want to take you through some of the areas of strategic planning and how that planning relates to the OnBase system. We want to talk about understanding where you are today. Not you personally, we know you're coming from all different parts of the US, I'm from Lincoln, but where you are today as far as your journey into content management, your journey with OnBase, and really laying out some areas of which you can identify where you sit within a maturity model within your organizations. Because certainly we have people on the call today, maybe that just installed last week. We have maybe people that have been on as long as I've been a part of the OnBase system for 20 years. So we really want to understand and have you reflect a little bit on where you are today. And really, as we're going through, I encourage you, take some notes locally, identify, where you're at in that process. Certainly logging that stuff is certainly part of this journey. And then determining where you're looking to go with your system. So we want to lay out some of that planning of where you're looking to go with your system. After that, we'll take a look about DataBank's road mapping. So we've got some initiatives with DataBank that we're rolling out as far as road mapping in general. We'll discuss some budgeting items, certainly a fun topic for everyone, but certainly something as we're looking at road mapping, certainly budgeting items come up. And we want to talk a little bit about simplified pricing, and then a little touch, as Andy mentioned, on some industry trends with enterprise pricing as we go through that. So I encourage you to reach out as we go through this webinar with questions or comments. We'll certainly take all of that. Caleb will be assisting me if something comes in the chat. We'll try to cover that as we're going through the webinar. If something piques your interest, if you want to ask a question, if you have a comment, I may a couple times through it ask you to just throw in a comment about how you perform certain items, and that will be an open sharing kind of session for you to just put into the chat or the Q&A some of your experiences so that you can share with others that are also on here. So if you have something that you'd like to share, some of your experiences going through that, we'd like to share that with the group as well. So certainly feel free in the Q&A session to go in and put in that information and to drive some of the engagement that we'll have as we go through that. So as we get started here, and as we start thinking about, really strategically planning for OnBase, or really any of the systems within your organization, I think it's important to first level set on your current situation. Being an outdoorsman myself, and in the theme of this OnBase camp, a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about in the next couple slides and throughout this session are preparing. They're a lot like preparing for maybe a camping trip or a fishing expedition that you're going on, or a hike in the mountains. We'll reference some of that as we go through this camp series, just noting that each different activity that we perform requires you to prepare a different list of necessary equipment, maybe clothes that you're going. Perhaps you're going to choose a different set of friends or staff or people to be along that journey with you, which leads us to a couple of questions that I'd like you just to think about as we get started here. So some of the questions that I'd like you to think of, and really the first one that I want you to think about as part of the series is, where are you today? Really, where are you today? Think about this in terms of your OnBase system. Think about this in terms of the staff that you have in your organization. Think about this in terms of the maturity within content across your organization. And really, you could be, and I'll kind of group these up into a couple different categories, although these may cross. Certain departments in your organization or certain areas may be at different stages of this, but your organization could be at the very beginning of this journey. This could be really your first implementation of a core system like this within your organization to manage content. Maybe at this stage, you're still working on defining what content you have, what different places around your organization produce content, who's part of that content production. All of those types of things may be still part of this implementation for you. You could be in your organization working with OnBase in a single department. So it could be a single department solution at this time. Or it could be even more defined as far as a rollout to one specific problem that you identified, or to solve one specific business process. And that's okay. Your users today across the organization in this first kind of stage of the journey may be struggling a little bit to find, where's the content they're looking for. You still may have across your organization lots of disparate systems that are managing that content. So just think about, in terms of your maturity, I'm certain that some of you out there are still at this first stage saying, we're really just getting started in here. We haven't laid out that full plan of where we're at. We're really just laying out, maybe we had a focus initially on that one department or that one process, and maybe we're through starting that process, but we're really still in the infancy of our journey into our system. So within your organization, really at this stage, you may be the one single driver of change as it comes to content management. So think about that in the terms of the staffing of your organization. Really the good news, as I mentioned, about being at this stage, there's really a lot of room for you for continued improvement. This is really just the building blocks of starting this process. So it's important as you think about this stage, and as you think about being in the stage, some of you that have been with OnBase for 10 plus years or 15 years, think back when you were in this stage of infancy in a content management system. And one thing that I'd like to just point out here at this stage is it's important for you to pick up some of those quick wins. You want to keep the excitement going of your system. You want to, capitalize on expansion opportunities that you have, early. So it's important to understand where you're at in that process, that you're at that first stage. But you also want to make sure as you're going through this stage, don't reduce that excitement. Keep those, all of those drivers that are coming in, all those people that are coming in with the questions, keep bringing those in and help yourself drive to that next level. So in talking about maybe a next level of kind of maturity in your OnBase system, or going forward with some road mapping type of things, you could have identified core processes, across your organization. You could have a list of those items that are out there, and you may have gained, as part of that initial phase, more organizational support as you've grown. You may have started through the process of creating a repeatable process to deploy content management really across your organization. So really one of the keys of, taking yourself from the very first stage of maturity here to the second stage is really building out some repeatable models of how you drive, change within your organization. At this level, you may have more units, business units, departments, agencies, if you're in the public area, coming to you and saying, we want to drive some change within our area. And you may be looking at incorporating maybe some very simple process workflows to help solve some of those standard challenges. And so you've got some of those opportunities coming in, and you've gained, maybe some experience in education with some of the tools that you've had to help solve some of those challenges. So certainly you take that next step further from the infancy onto that really next stage of growing within your organization. Taking that one step further, really, up a chain, your organization may have established and is beginning to enforce really enterprise standards for storing content and processing across the enterprise. I think back to what I mentioned about starting with EDOC at the state of Nebraska. They had gone through a couple of those stages. Different departments and agencies had gone through some of those infancy stages, and they had identified a need to standardize on a common platform, on an enterprise content system. And so one of the things that they did, and I carry this forward through a lot of my conversations that I have with people, is the ability to identify OnBase as a key and as your enterprise content management system. At Nebraska, what they did is they put a mandate in place that any future spending that was going to go out that had to do with core functions that really dealt with content, so that be storing content, viewing and accessing content, workflows, case management types of things, anything that came in, there was a mandate that they sent out and said, hey, we're investing in this system. As part of our maturity into content management, we want to make sure we know what's going on across our organization. And as part of that, they said, we want to review those processes. So certainly a stage within the maturity of content at your organization might be establishing some of those review processes, maybe a waiver to get exceptions to that where another tool may fit better. But in this case, each department or agency that came on that was looking to implement automation or stored content had to look first at whether OnBase could fit their need. Really drove that desire for the state to create that single repository for truth across the organization and drive standardization into training and business processes that went out there. At this level of maturity, it's also important to develop, standardization for your documents. At their size, it was important to have common naming conventions, to have ways to roll out across the enterprise some of those items. So as you think about where you're at in your maturity, look at how you've classified documents coming into your system. Look at how you've classified your keywords. Look at how you've classified the different information, how you're gathering information. Look at those and understand, have you standardized on some of those to help you as you move forward and as you roll out further across your organization. Another key point as you mature within the OnBase platform and mature in content across your organization is thinking about how you're integrating with third-party systems. This is becoming a requirement. More and more organizations are identifying the need to standardize the storage of their content or searching into their content, but they don't want to get rid of all of those other tools. So integrating with them, providing a standardized way to do that is important in growing and maturing as an organization. And finally, after you've gone through really a series of that maturity within your different departments, within your different agencies, within your different areas, there's really one last step that kind of hits off. And this may be the most important step that there is. You've gone through those initial phases, you've moved the enterprise or you've moved a department forward, but perhaps you've even extended that strategy to data beyond just documents that you have to optimize that. But one thing that is often forgot about is looking backwards and really optimizing what you have. So as you have learned along the way, as technology has changed, there's a need to look back. There's a need to refine your previous implementations, to look back at what you've done and really look at how you can grow from that step that you're at. That process that you deployed 3 years ago or 5 years ago, maybe it may be time to reevaluate that specific process. So as we move from really question number one of just thinking about where you are at today in maturity and with your OnBase system, let me pose maybe a second question to you. And the second question that I have is, how will you know within your organization that you're getting to where you want to be? As we walked through some of those stages, perhaps you identified within your organization, as sitting within one of those tiers. Maybe you classified a department into one tier, the enterprise into a separate tier. I'd like you to think about, where do you want to be with your content management platform? Is OnBase really a core application for one department, for one single process? Has it been established as the key content management system and source of truth across the organization? If it hasn't, why hasn't it? What is that system? How are you developing those plans? Thinking about that as well, is it integrated into your other applications? So take an inventory of all of the applications that you have across your organization. Identify really what content those are creating, how you're utilizing those, how you're transferring data maybe from one system to the other. Are you doing that in the best way? Is it really integrated together? We've seen, many organizations create a single source of truth by expanding their OnBase system with integrations out to different areas. In many cases, users may, or they may not even know that they're utilizing OnBase and the key content system as they're pulling their content from their lines of business. Just think about your ERP system and pulling invoices from that. Maybe you have a homegrown application that stores your proprietary processes in there, and you have content that you need to get access to or store content. The ability to integrate those applications is vital. In HR, maybe either internally or externally, you've got personnel files or onboarding documents that you're going back and forth with. Just think about how nice that would be if there was a central and standardized line of business system that stored all that kind of stuff, and really all your other line of business systems could work with that specific item. kind of to put this back into the road mapping and the camping theme, imagine you're taking that hiking trip that you're going on. You first want to establish, where you are on the map. That's determine, where you are, determine where you're going. So, are you going to the top of that mountain? And then you want to make sure that you're logging your trip along the way. Today, if I'm doing that, I might have my GPS device for hiking, but in the software and content management world, we need to document our progress. We need to set, goals that we are striving to move forward towards. We need to look back and understand, how we've grown across those, and to reevaluate at times how we're progressing towards that mountain peak. So as you think about that, and how you're making progress towards those goals, if you're out on that hike, if you're planning and preparing, the people that you have with you make all the difference in understanding and having success. More specifically is really a third question. So maybe you've established, kind of where you're at. You've established a little bit where you want to go. But the most important part might be, how are you going to get there? How are you going to drive from a maturity level of 1 to a maturity level of 4? How are you going to, solve that problem that you've got? What are those roadblocks that are holding you back from moving your organization forward and helping, more people find and manage the content that they have? At DataBank, we are constantly getting asked, and probably within your organization, to do more with less. Staffing and support is a challenge. Certainly, change management within your organization and with many is very difficult. So, as you're working through that, understanding, all the tools at your disposal is important to help drive to how you will get there. So a couple of things just think about is, maybe there's executive support that you need to gain. Potentially there's particular skills, certifications that would advance a particular project. Maybe there's a need for more staff, or perhaps different staff with different expertise to help drive that. Maybe there's a developmental or a custom integration required really to solve that problem or to move a process forward. And just something to think about is, do you have the time to wait, or do you have the time to learn these new skills, or do you need to meet those challenges and really move yourself forward to help get to that next level and to drive that next step within your organization? So as you're thinking about really these 3 questions, I want to let you know that DataBank has some ideas to help drive these items forward. And as part of that is really setting some system goals. I've titled this slide Establishing System Goals, but more specifically, I want to talk a little bit about some activities that you can perform or DataBank can assist you with to match your current maturity level and to really keep pace with the goals you have for your OnBase system, really solving that road mapping challenge that you have out there. The first item that I have on this list is all around value-driven discussions. As you are going through those maturity levels, as you're working within your organization, many of our organizations, regardless of where you're at in stage, may be looking for assistance in identifying returns on investment, payback timeframes for these projects. You may need to know what is the present value of your application, or simply, it may be something as intangible as just working to align the solution and the software with your organization's strategic objectives. So if you know what you want to deploy, but simply need the assistance in budget approval, in securing resources, or understanding value of the solution, DataBank can help you. We have some enterprise and value assessments that we can use to help that. Within your organization, I would encourage you, look back at the process that you've implemented and document all that value that you've brought to your organization. Ensure you've celebrated those wins. Certainly, a lot of times, as I looked across all the attendees that we had today, a lot of people are OnBase administrators, and I don't think you probably take enough credit in all the help that you've given to everyone across your organization and the wins that you've given them in successfully accessing and managing processes, standardizing items, and really, targeting future opportunities. Along with kind of the enterprise value assessments, these same types of resources can be used to align your technology, align the assets that you have, the people that you have, the procedures even that you're going through, and goals at a department level. So you can take this same thing from an enterprise level and really focus that down to individual departments. And I'd encourage you, if you've done these activities, if you've got some ideas around how you've done with that with your organization today, enter some of those into the Q&A or the comments. Share with others what you've found as good tips to drive, value within your organization to win that, change management battle that you have today, and going through that. I do notice that I have a Q&A, and notice, and I'll comment on this from William. You're exactly right. An important component is education, and we're going to hit on that in a little bit. The core training and those items and premium subscriptions are certainly a way to do that. So certainly, Will, that is a key component. We're going to hit on that even in more detail as part of road mapping, is how important education and help guides and information within the system are to help driving you forward. So thank you for that comment. That's a key part of doing that. One of the second activities that we have is really more specific to departments or processes. If you've worked with DataBank for very long, you're probably familiar with our team of solution architects. This team is dedicated to working with our sales team to listen and understand your business challenges and architecting a solution to match that for an individual process. Many of on the call today probably are doing similar tasks within your organization today. We can take these, activities that we're doing, we can refine them to provide a more specific and short-term plan to provide quick wins for your group. So as part of your road mapping efforts, I encourage you to break down those overall strategic goals into manageable department or process activities that you have. I think breaking those items down is an important part. I think, one common mistake that people make, especially within content management, is trying to do too much all at the same time. I can think back to, projects that I've done over the last 15 years. And one of the first goals was to bring on an entire agency or to solve an entire process from the very beginning to the very end. And we worked on every little detail of that. And until every detail was solved, we didn't promote something. We didn't activate something. The OnBase platform itself, with its point and click interface, is a perfect tool to solve lots of small challenges that end up creating huge value. Taking a bit of time up front, and I don't want to say, I don't want to tell you how much time, but taking a little bit of time up front in the department of the process to analyze, where you're going, what mountain you're climbing, and ensure you're on that right path will help you break that down into the phases appropriate to get there, so that you don't, go the wrong way for a while. And that's even okay. Sometimes it's okay to take a little bit of a detour, to get to the top, because maybe you find out that that wasn't always the best path that you planned out right at the beginning. So kind of in keeping to that camp theme, if you're hiking that tall mountain, attempting to go too far on that first day is only going to wear you out. It's going to create more challenges throughout the rest of the hike. Really proper planning, solving the small challenges each hour, each day is going to lead to your really overall success. And the last activity, really tying back to some of the maturity pieces that we had, but really ties more into optimization, is really the system health or items. So even if you're not at that, top tier maturity, these activities can help ensure that the success of your solution as you grow and work towards, building out that maturity level. These activities are typically a little bit more technical in nature, and they dive specifically into either system or solution reviews. So at DataBank, we've got a couple of assessments in terms of system health. We have a couple of utilities and assessment guides to help you better understand the health of your system, ensure it's running to peak performance. We also have tools to help you plan ahead, as upgrades or change is always something that's out in front of you. Again, relaying this to our hiking theme, it's important throughout your hike that you take note of your personal health. Something as small as a blister on your foot early in that climb can really cripple your ability to finish that hike. It's important to stop, have regular checks to ensure that you're setting yourself up for success versus setting yourself up for failure as you build. It's also an important item to keep your eye on the surroundings. On that hike that you're going on, especially as Andy mentioned, if he's doing that in North Dakota, I'm not sure how many mountains are in North Dakota, but on that hike, the weather or the terrain could drastically impact your goals of reaching the peak. Similarly, as you're looking at OnBase and you're road mapping for OnBase, organizational change, moving to the cloud, establishing different security or upgrading may cause a need to look back and measure your process and system health to allow you to move forward. So certainly, as I've covered these at a high level, let's talk and let's move a little bit more into some of the DataBank road mapping activities that we typically perform. So as part of our, road mapping activities, the first thing, and back to the point that was mentioned in the Q&A about education, is to really understand the true capabilities of the OnBase system. Just like you would do before you go on that hike, you look internally about your capabilities. It's important to work on a plan to deliver the education of the components and the software that you have, not only within you as an OnBase admin or as someone at this session, but to the rest of your organization. I've heard the following statement from many of you on the call today. If John Smith from XYZ department or agency knew that OnBase could do that, we wouldn't have brought in this other application, or we wouldn't be evaluating this other piece, or we wouldn't be pulling that out in time. I know a few of you that have also sent me personal messages saying, hey, I just have, this XYZ problem, and if we just need to know, is it possible? Can you give us a couple of ideas towards solving it? Do you think that it's solvable with this tool? Even having, 18 years in the platform, there's opportunities every day where I reach out to others to better understand or get a second view into helping solve that challenge. So that's why the very beginning of our road mapping starts with understanding what you have. It's understanding what tools you have, the capabilities of that tool, and education on what you have. So I've put a number of broad categories up on this screen just about the platform in general for us today. Some of you may be aware of all of the items at the top and the items at the bottom, but some of you may not. Let me walk through them just quickly and give you a high level of what some of the core components of the OnBase platform bring, so that you know what tools you have, in your toolbox or in your kit as you go on that hike. So just starting at the top, OnBase has a broad series of capture and import utilities. This allowing you to bring content in from just about anywhere. This could be faxes, it could be folders, it could be email, it could be scanning documents in, it could be some automatic classification of documents. It could be integrating with a different tool that does some of the classification of documents. Even utilities, and some of us on the team know as even utilities for bringing in old green screen reports, all of the reports from AS400s, there's even utilities to bring in that content and make a centralized repository for all of that. So this also encompasses many different file formats. So images, PDFs, audio files, CAD drawings, all of that content can all be a part of your OnBase system. Taking that to really the next level in here is really just the ability within the system to manage the content. OnBase has a full suite providing you revision and viewing capabilities, notes and markups, really providing you all this functionality where you are. So this could be at your desk in the office, this could be at a remote location via some of the mobile components, and even the ability to tie in this information with other applications. So doing some integration with the component. Really, the next step down is really solving some of the process challenges. So a very robust, and I'll mention this heavily here, is a point and click workflow designer. So the ability for your users, and you're probably very familiar with it, to go in and build automation within your organization. Not only just routing documents, but also an RPA or robotic process automation suite is all part of the OnBase thing. This would allow you to standardize your business processes, provide flexibility in routing and assigning documents and the data that you have to individuals, and gain a full audit trail of all that activity. Within the RPA suite, really minimizing repetitive tasks that people have and really allowing you to do this 24 hours a day. You don't have to have processes that only run when people are there clicking the buttons. You can start working to automate these tasks. We've certainly worked with a number of organizations that have documents that come in overnight. There's processes that need to be done to take that data and put it into multiple systems. These RPA engines can help drive some of that process. The OnBase suite also has an integrated customer communications management piece and collaboration, allowing you to manage all your outgoing communication with your clients, constituents, etc. Packaging files that you have, delivering those out to your different people. Another step down is case management, or OnBase's low-code application development tool. Think about in your organization, anywhere you have spreadsheets or access databases or managing a log on a notepad, you've got maybe a third-party tool that is very focused on one small piece. You have the ability with OnBase to potentially replace some of those homegrown applications to more of a standardized function. And the good part is that it's all integrated into your content management system. So it's all part of the same tool. It's all through a low-code point and click kind of an interface. Taking that really a couple steps further, the full ability to report and monitor what's going on in your system, see system health. You can also utilize the dashboards as a custom view or a dashboard for your users within the system. Full text searching, records management, and last but not least here is the full API and integrations with the system. I encourage you to, to reach out to your DataBank rep, taking you through. If you have questions on any of these items, if you'd like to set up a one-on-one session, we could certainly walk through any of this stuff in more detail. And then I wanted to point out a couple of other, items that you should look at here. Number one is the Highland community site. If you're at this webinar today at this camp series and you have not yet signed up for Highland Community, I encourage you to reach out to us. We can help you, or go out to the site and register. This is the home of thousands of like-minded OnBase people pouring their ideas and knowledge out, gaining understanding of the capabilities. And as I have noted on here, the try.highland site, also the ability to go out there and try out. This has been revamped recently. It provides you the ability for some pre-built solutions, try them live in virtual environments, take a look into how that's going to be, before you would implement into your environment. Thinking back to the hiking example, if this was a new trail that you were going on, in one of our first hikes, the best way to ensure success is to be as educated as possible in that journey. You might be watching YouTube videos of people that have taken the trail. You might be obtaining checklists for that preparations, or simply asking or grabbing an expert to assist you the first time you go through it. All of those are things that you can reach out to DataBank or to the community to help drive those next items. As far as DataBank itself, we know staffing is challenging and becoming an issue. One of the things that we like to do in our road mapping first is do a pre-discovery analysis. We walk through your system, we identify current use, we get a picture of how your system is configured, and we do some reporting to understand how people are utilizing particular processes or features within the system. We identify areas that are unique or may cause, particular concern as you go through that. In our road mapping, we like to perform, interviews with your IT and OnBase teams to establish a more complete picture of not only OnBase, but the other technologies that you have across your organization. So certainly as part of your road mapping efforts, I certainly encourage you to look at inventorying not just OnBase, but inventorying what tools you have across your organization and inventorying all the content that's part of those, identifying the single source of truth for each of those and the integration possibilities. It's amazing just in laying out that picture, how that can drive new ideas and find gaps that you have within there. As part of those interviews, we really like to do that from the executive level, from the OnBase administrative level, and we're appropriately digging deep into department level perspectives. We may even do a walkthrough of a particular department to identify any gaps or challenges with that. That assists us in a SWOT analysis or performing really a layout of where we see strengths, where we see weaknesses, where we see opportunities or threats within your organization. Often an organization is ready for change, but struggles with internal communication or agreement on moving forward can become the challenge. I'm sure many of you have encountered the time where you have that great idea, you've proposed it maybe once or maybe 10 times, but it just takes someone else expressing that same thing a different way for someone to jump on a board and agree to move it forward. We can help you with doing that. We're there to listen and assist you in that planning. We can bring all of our expertise in a fresh and different perspective in breaking that down. One of the other items as part of this is really to look at current licensing that you have, looking at what you have the ability to do with your system, and identify, potential gaps that we see with that. So the result of these activities really comes into more of a formal document or expressed as part of talking items in our executive business reviews with your organization. So as we've hit on licensing just a bit, I want to transition into some budgeting tips and maybe a quick update on licensing. So as we look at licensing, and as you look at road mapping, again, back to maybe that one of those first stages is to understand how you're using the system. Do you know today how many people are utilizing particular functions of the system? Do you know, how many people are logging in on a daily basis? OnBase has some great logging, maybe a bit challenging to extract some of that stuff, but you have the ability to jump in and see, that process you implemented 3 years ago, is it still running as it's supposed to? Are users still using it? And that's the first step towards looking to the future, is understanding what you have within the system today. So we encourage you, perform an inventory on your OnBase system, identify the current and future usage. If you're able to, generate that 1 year and 3 year plans, even if possible, extend that out to a 5-year plan. Identify what projects, what people, what areas you want to incorporate, with which other applications may be coming into the organization or you may be getting rid of, that help impact your drive and your roadmap of OnBase forward. So certainly lay that out. What's important about this is also communicating that with DataBank. As we talk about your goals and your growth of the OnBase system, it's important that we're looking at how we can grow in the licensing aspect as well. Highland has adjusted some of their pricing models historically, and we can work with you on making sure that matches up for your best, for your current and for your future use. So we've had a number of opportunities recently to adjust licensing for people that are expanding systems and adding on to evolve to the right licensing platform that matches that. So let's talk a little bit about how the licensing has evolved. So many of you may be looking at this and be sitting in kind of a perpetual state where you purchase modules, you have annual maintenance that comes up that helps cover the updates and the maintenance of that modules. Going forward, you may be adding on modules with subscription, or maybe you started in the subscription world. Highland, a couple of years ago, in kind of the craze since COVID, many net new organizations took advantage of what was known as simplified pricing. We'll cover this a bit in more detail in just a second, but really it's a 3-tier system that allows you to choose, am I really scan, store, and retrieve, am I workflow, or am I case management, and allows you to build a package upon that. In addition to that is a tie-in to enterprise license. So the ability to create across the enterprise access, so that as you look to deploy a new project, you really have the ability to do that without having to go back and looking at more licensing. So the simplified is really broken down into 3 tiers. Again, essential for that content management capabilities, the standard, which adds in workflow in some of those tiers, and then the premier, which adds in some of the case management pieces. So with that, Andy, let me turn it over to you, and maybe you can talk a little bit about how organizations have utilized the enterprise licensing at one or multiple of those tiers to help drive some of their projects.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I promise everybody no more dad jokes for you. You're going to hear a lot of the same things that Aaron was just discussing in what I'm about to bring to you. You just hear different ways of me presenting it to you. The first one, history of projects. We look back at projects we do here at DataBank and do with our clients. We do a lot of discovery work up front, that design and discovery phase of that project, working with you guys as partners, going through your business process, understanding what you're doing at the business side of things, taking that, developing that solution, but also using that piece to make those recommendations of what licenses are needed for that project. Whether it is those tiers that Aaron had just touched on, making sure that we bring what is needed for that specific solution to you guys so that you are able to look into that license pricing and decide what's going to be a best case scenario for you guys within your organization. The next bullet 2 and 4 kind of go together. When you're looking at some of what's needed here at your your enterprise or your organization level. Where are you at in your OnBase journey? Have we got that leadership buy-in? Have we got that enterprise buy-in for OnBase being that solution as a whole for content manager? We look at, and a lot of our clients are doing this, we look at those small wins, starting that journey, starting that process, making those small wins shine bright, making leadership see that these small wins are solutions that really can help that organization. As we grab those small wins, that's where leadership can say, wow, look at what OnBase can do. Look at the tools that it provides us, how we can use that within our organization to really drive our organization forward. Solution reuse, this goes along with some of that too. Where you are doing some of those small wins, you're creating these projects that could possibly be used from agency to agency. A good example that many of our clients have used in the past is contracts management. When you look at a contracts management solution, many of the agencies across your organization have contracts that come in. How are those contracts managed? Is it paper? Is it bringing it to somebody's desk? Using these solutions can really make that a virtual process. And then you take that and if one agency grabs that contract management solution, can show the benefits, can show the ROI on that contract management solution, other agencies across your organization can grab that with small shifts in how that's being done. The small pieces behind the scenes, doc types, user groups, how that flows, things like that. But those small changes can really, you can reuse that contracts management solution across your organization. That's just one example. Many examples that are used, on a day-to-day basis. But contracts management is one that I see a lot with our clients. Being able to start with that one and seeing the benefits and really driving that as an enterprise solution. The last piece that I'll touch on is license considerations. I talk about the recommendations that are brought forward during our design and discovery process. Aaron touched on the different tiers of licensing. We're here to partner with you. DataBank's here. Reach out to your account manager. They'll pull in a solutions architect. Those are all non-billable. I mean, they're really there to help you. They're not going to bill their time. They want to help you. They want to partner with you on what's going to be the best case scenario for your ROI, your cost analysis on those licenses. A great example with that is working with a current client on some WorkView licenses. They're pushing forward with a large WorkView solution, but their account manager is still using that example and doing a cost analysis on whether this large solution is benefited by doing it WorkView licenses at a per user basis or at an enterprise level. And that's where I drive, where we're here to partner with you. We can pull in resources here from DataBank and help you decide what's going to be best cost savings for your organization on those licenses. And what does your future look like in driving that roadmap for the future? Maybe at that point, a per user basis license structure is better. But if you're looking at in a year or two to drive more WorkView licenses, then maybe that enterprise license is better. That's what we're here for. That's what your account manager's here for. Use their expertise with the OnBase solution, with other organizations, and make sure they can show you that cost analysis. I think that's all we have, Aaron and I have here. I think the next slide is to open up for some questions. So I'll open it up here. I think there was a reply here from Will on talking through the education piece that Aaron touched on. So Aaron, I'll hand it back over to you with some of these questions.
Yeah, very good. We had another one that came in that just was an agreement that said, you know, phased approaches are important component to success. And certainly, as we touched on, the project is important, but you have to make adjustments based on the requirements of the solution. So that's certainly part of it. Another one came in that talked about how you learn more about enterprise versus the per user. Certainly, what we'll do is we'll work with you specifically. We want to get in and do that analysis on, you know, what are you using today, drive that conversation. But as Annie mentioned, there is some benefits also to the enterprise in the fact that as you want to roll out a new solution, your users or your developers, you guys as OnBase people, you don't have to go back and ask for more licenses. You just know that you can go solve that problem immediately. In many cases, if you have to go back for the budget before you solve the problem, that problem may, you know, go away or find a different utility for it. So solving that up front, you know, allowing yourself to have that vision, you know, of, you know, workflow across the organization or case management across the organization gives you the ability to, you know, have freedom in building out applications and not worrying so much about the individual licenses that go with it. So certainly, you know, discuss as we mentioned with your account manager, we're certainly going to do that. I'm going to skip forward. There may be a couple more questions that come through, and certainly you're willing to do it, but I want to talk a little bit about next steps based on our timeline today. So in the next steps, I want to thank you, first of all, for attending the webinar. As we sent out as a part of attending today, we want to offer you a small portion of our road mapping activities to help you get started. So what I would ask you to do is, you know, contact your account rep with DataBank. Let them know you're interested in this, that, you know, we've got the list of everyone that was here, and discuss a time frame. Certainly we know where we're at with the holiday season. We're expecting a heavy list of requests. We've got great attendance on today's call. So we'll work on coordinating the schedules with you and laying that out. Some of them we may get in here before the end of the year. Some of them may carry into next year or be mid next year before you would want to get started with that. But we'll work with you. What I would ask you to do is reach out to your rep. We'll coordinate the delivery of time and when we want to present back those results. So what we'll do is we'll identify, we'd like to present back the results of this as part of a business review. So we know a lot of you have gone through what we call the EBR process, or executive business review, or quarterly business reviews. We want to schedule the return of these results and this information as part of a topic within there. We can certainly expand on that as necessary, but let's set that date of that EBR, of that time to deliver the results. About 30 days ahead of that, or 45 days, we want to reach out and we want to touch base on scheduling the time for your team and our team to collaborate on running the utilities and gaining the data that we can use to drive that. These tools don't take 30 days, but that just gives us some logistical time to plan and run through those things. So we think, you know, if you would want something in December, we'd want to get started on that, you know, really soon and get that on the calendar here to get that. The goal here would be to provide you with the analysis of current utilization and some specific items around upgrade, cloud, the system that you're in today, some process that you're in today, with the current version of OnBase and some vision towards the next step of OnBase. So before we wrap, I want to turn this over. I think Claire's going to jump on and talk a little bit about our next series. So thanks again for attending. Thank you for Andy for jumping on with us. We certainly appreciate your time this morning or this afternoon.
Thanks so much, Aaron and Andy, and thanks everyone for attending. Just really quickly, I wanted to give you a preview of what we have coming up. We are going to be meeting back up in January after the holidays, and we hope that you'll join us. This next webinar in our series is going to be around planning a strategy for cloud. So you'll kind of notice there's a theme. Today we talked about strategically planning for OnBase. We also want to talk about just the practical steps involved in a cloud migration, how to prepare for that, the things that our team is looking at for any kind of cloud solution that you're looking into. We're going to give you a sneak peek of our cloud portal and also talk to a panel of our cloud team here at DataBank. So we'll have a question and answer session just like we did today, but it's also going to be more of a roundtable panel discussion walking through a cloud migration. So we hope that you'll join us on January 18th. All of our information from today's session will be sent out via email in the next few days. Like Aaron said, please reach out. We want to talk to you as part of these planning sessions. We are also offering a new learning course as part of our OnBase Camp Explorer series. So that information will be distributed with the recorded webinar. With that, I think we'll wrap it up for today. Thank you all so much, and we hope to see you back here in January.